Hello, everybody, and welcome to Quantum Leap. It's not the usual Quantum Leap Revisited. We're just doing a little bit of a stream here to talk about some fun facts about Quantum Leap because it's sort of a special day today, so we're just going to have a little fun. I know that some people are busy doing other things, but this should be nice for fans of Quantum Leap that are around and want to hang out and want to talk a little bit about the series. So I see we have here Tex and I see Peter. And of course, greetings to everybody and hope you're all having a wonderful day. I guess what I've done here today is in this kind of abbreviated stream, I'm going to go over some fun facts. Ahoy, Tex. Ahoy, Marks. Nice to see you both. We're going to do a little bit of a fun facts type of trivia here. And it's going to be a nice little thing that we get to talk about and just hang out for a bit. And then we'll all be on our way. So without further ado, we are, of course, discussing the Quantum Leap series, the one that ran from 1989 to 1993, starring Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell, not to be confused with that other crappy series that came out in 2022 that nobody liked and was ultimately canceled because nobody liked it. So, yeah, let's do this little bit of trivia that we have here. I even prepared a little bit of a kind of slideshow, if you want to call it. Nothing too fancy. Just something kind of hastily put together so we can look at some interesting facts and ideas. And of course, I'll also be interested in seeing some of your comments in the chat. It's always fun to hang out with you guys. So we're going to just hang out here and look at the Quantum Leap fun facts. So for starters, Al's cigars. Throughout the series, it was a thing that Al has cigars, and I think that's a great part of his character. It's always kind of fun that Sam is stuck in time traveling from place to place, and Al, as his hologram, always has a cigar in his hand. It really adds to the feeling, the cool, random feeling of this show that just cool stuff happens on, and just makes Al probably the coolest hologram that a time traveler could have. So initially, Al's cigar was the idea of Dean Stockwell, who said it was a good way to get free cigars for 5 years. And that's kind of funny how much Dean Stockwell sort of brought from his own personal character to this role. And it doesn't surprise me because I think that we get a lot of Dean in that portrayal. There's a lot of Dean Stockwell in that character. I know that he's a good actor, and he certainly could, do more dramatic moments and more moments of levity. But I think that there was an overall character that we got from him that we saw in the character, in the character itself. But it also came from Dean. So in that sense, it's nice to hear that he actually is the reason that Al has cigars because he himself likes cigars. So it's kind of funny. Today, they wouldn't have anybody holding a cigar because they think that it was toxic or they'd say it's bad, and in general they wouldn't allow a character like Al to exist because he would be considered problematic. So that's the first little trivia we had here. And Tex Rogers says, and the cigar was an important clue in Leap for Lisa. Well, we haven't gotten to that episode yet in our regular run, but you are saying things that are interesting for sure. And let's go to the next one. Let's see what else we have here. Casting. Scott Bakula was the first actor cast and thus was asked to read with actors under consideration for the role of Al Calvici. Bakula immediately felt a connection with Dean Stockwell during his audition and lobbied the producers to cast him as Al. Now, that doesn't surprise me. The thing is that they just have, sometimes you have people that just have a rapport right out the gate. And I feel like these two people, first of all, as people really connected, and they then developed a friendship that lasted far beyond this show's existence. And until Dean Stockwell's death, they were really great friends. So I think that kind of camaraderie and friendship really comes across on the screen. Probably part of the reason why this series works so well is not only the on-screen acting chemistry they had, but also the fact that they were friends in real life and how they became such good friends. And you could feel it in every episode they were in. It also helps in any kind of thing you do. And you're doing a job, day in and day out, and these are long hours that they're working on sets, going from place to place. And if they're friends and they're enjoying what they're doing, I think that it really matters. So yeah, and happy Thanksgiving to you too, Caleb Levine. In any case, this doesn't surprise me at all. And the thing is that Scott Bakula at this point, he had just won a Tony Award, I believe, or he was maybe nominated for Best Actor on Broadway in for the Tony Awards. He was a very, very talented actor, and the Dean Stockwell that played Al, right after he auditioned, he actually got a nomination for an Academy Award for being in the movie Married to the Mob. But I think there's another slide that where we address that. So yeah, let's move on. Number 3, oh boy. And Tex Rogers says, I don't mind breaking the rules about future shows for this because the panel is absent. That is true. But I try to, keep some kind of order here. But you know what? It's not that important. In any case, number 3, oh boy. Scott Bakula ad-libs the line, oh boy, at the start of the first episode. The producer liked it so much that it became the signature final line of each episode as Sam finds himself in a new body. I feel like initially in the earlier episodes, I'm not even sure he says it each time. It's a strange bit of trivia, but I assume whoever wrote this, perhaps when whoever the producers and Donald Belisario and the team there were watching the initial episodes and they saw him ad-lib it once, maybe they started thinking to incorporate it more. And then there's sort of a moment that by the second season at some point, they just say, okay, let's just have him say it each time. So maybe it wasn't a process that happened in 5 minutes, and maybe they already had a lot of episodes in the can or a number of them until they decided on it. But they did eventually lock in on the oh boy, which I think is an important part. Tex doesn't believe it. That sounds fishy because, like you, I don't remember hearing it in the early shows. It took a while for this. And yeah, and what I have to say is that it is possible that as they were rewatching their work after they already filmed a handful of episodes, maybe somebody, amongst the producers said, you know what, that ad-lib line that he goes, oh boy, I kind of like that. Can he say that again? And that's maybe how it happened, because these things happen that way sometimes. So I think that that's probably a better explanation than this bit of trivia that I got. But I understand that initially, let's take away from this that initially he wasn't supposed to say, oh boy, every time. But Scott Bakula ad-libbed it, and the producers liked it. And that probably does sound logical to me. Number 4, favorite show of creator. This was Donald P. Beliasario's favorite of all of his television series. This is a big compliment to the show, but I actually have seen interviews with him, and I believe that this is true. The thing is that he actually made a lot of great shows aside from this one. And it speaks volumes about this show, the fact that he loves this one so much. Let me see for a second if I can find some of his shows that he created. So he created Magnum PI. He created Airwolf. And, later he would create JAG and NCIS, which were pretty big shows, big franchises. And the fact that until this day, he thinks of Quantum Leap, that's like his biggest achievement. I think that it says a lot. And at the same time, it also doesn't surprise me, because if you think about it, NCIS is a very kind of, cookie cutter show. It's pretty clear that after Quantum Leap, which really was his heart and soul, he was looking more to do shows that maybe you don't put in as much work as before, but you make bigger returns. JAG and NCIS, which is actually a spin-off of JAG, were very much these kind of procedural of the week, as opposed to having revolving sets that you're traveling from town to town and trying to build different eras in time. This is like the opposite. You're just in an office. It's the same interrogation room. You're talking to some suspect. You're going here. You're going there. You solve the case, and you move on to the next week. And these days, NCIS, you could literally, they may have like a dartboard just with like cliches, and all they need to do is throw, like, if their writing room is basically them with like a dartboard with cliches, they just fire a few darts. And wherever the darts land, that's what the episode is. That's how they write an episode. Now, I don't know this scientifically, but that's my theory on how NCIS shows are written, because they're so run-of-the-mill and so generic and so plain. And yet that franchise, the NCIS franchise, has made Donald P. Belisario so much money. And ironically, it's also made Scott Bakula himself a lot of money because, he brought Scott Bakula into New Orleans at some point, which I think he got 7 seasons out of. And they paid him pretty well. That was a nice little retirement package for him to do on a show that used maybe a small fraction of his talent, in my opinion. Yes, Marks47 says, formulaic. He did actually write and direct stuff in Battlestar Galactica as far as I know, but he wasn't the creator of it. Sex Roger says, sadly, he was also behind the new Quantum Leap. I think that's not so much an accurate description. The thing is that he's already like in his late 80s or something. When they rebooted this Quantum Leap show, I feel like it was more of they got his signature somewhere so that they could make the show and he would collect checks and they would pay him. I really don't think that he sat around on the set and started bringing his 2 cents and his ideas. They brought Deborah Pratt back, who did a great show on the first on the first series, and they didn't really let her do anything either. So they basically just brought her in so she could talk to the press and regurgitate their talking points about how diverse they are. But aside from doing that, and maybe one episode which they let her direct or something, she didn't do much. Even the episode she directed, as far as I remember, I don't think she wrote it. It was almost like she was there in name only. They gave her a few things to do just to make it seem like they did something. Donald P. Belisario didn't even get that. So very, very minimal very minimal involvement. Marks47 says, I think they paid him for his name for Quantum Leap just to give it street cred and the rights. Deborah Pratt and Martin Giro were the ones injecting the wokeness. I actually think that it was mainly Martin Giro. Deborah Pratt was mainly a cheerleader, that they paid her money to be sort of an executive producer. She didn't really bring, as far as I could tell, too many creative ideas here. Anytime I would see an article, it would seem more like this Martin Giro guy is in charge, and they would roll her out. They brought her for street cred, because if you're at a convention or if you're doing interviews and you have one of the sort of original producers sitting there, she is a woman. She falls neatly into the kind of narratives that are being peddled these days. She gets to say a few things about diversity. Everybody claps and she moves on. The sad part for me is that Deborah Pratt really doesn't need any of that. Because on the original show, she was a real trailblazer, but she did it just because she's talented. She was one of the producers of the show. She was a key figure in the writing room, in some cases just writing episodes, doing a lot of great work on this show. And there was no need for this years later rolling her out and having her say how much she loves diversity. I think that wasn't doing any kind of respect for her. And at the end, though, I'm not upset at her for what happened with Quantum Leap reboot. I feel like she was at a point where she was already in her 70s. Somebody came, said, "Hey, do you want to get a check every week just for standing around and saying that this is very diverse?" And she said, "Okay." And I can't blame her. You know what I mean? When I'm 70, if somebody, hopefully I will be, when I'm 70, should we all get there, I'm hopeful that somebody walks up to me and say, "Hey, do you want to get a check every week for a lot of money? Just stand here and smile." And maybe I'll say, "Hey, you know what? Great." Who knows? Maybe I'll be standing next to Tex Rogers and we'll be talking to reporters. Then we have Charles Gossard. Quantum Leap is one of the great shows of yesteryear. I agree. It's just a great show, period. And I absolutely enjoy this show. And then the next slide we have is Dennis Hopper warning. According to Dean Stockwell, his friend Dennis Hopper advised him not to take a role on television so soon after being nominated for an Academy Award, Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Married to the Mob, 1988. Stockwell took the role anyways and was nominated for 4 Emmys, 4 Golden Globes. He won one in 1990 for his role as Al. Now, what happened is that maybe people don't remember. Dean Stockwell had a very long career in Hollywood, and he had already won a Golden Globe, and he'd been in the business since a young age. And you know, when you're in the business like that, there's ups and downs. And it seemed for a while that he kind of was on the kind of lower end of getting a lot of roles. You know, here and there they gave him a role of a character actor here and there, but he wasn't kind of front and center. Now, around the time that he was auditioning or prior to him auditioning, he made that movie Married to the Mob with Michelle Pfeiffer and Matthew Modine. And he also auditioned for this Quantum Leap show. Now, in some strange twist of fate, basically they nominated him for an Academy Award for his role in the movie Married to the Mob. And that kind of put his name back, on top, back center stage in Hollywood. So now a guy that was being nominated for an Academy Award had just auditioned for this show, and the people making this show were genuinely worried that he was going to bail, that he was going to say, you know what, I was just nominated for an Oscar, I don't need this. And I think that that's why Dennis Hopper was also telling him, forget about this show, cash in on what you have here, you can get a lot of great roles. But interestingly, Dean Stockwell, for him, this show, there was something that he really liked about it, and he seemed to genuinely want to do it. And I think that we really got very lucky with the casting of this show. And this is another example. We had Scott Bakula just got nominated like Best Actor on Broadway with the Tony Award. He was just nominated for an Academy Award. It's very rare, and especially in a year like 1989, where television is not something that usually great actors don't really love going to television in 1989. And the fact that they both really enjoyed what this show was, they wanted to be a part of it, that just helps round out, I guess, some of the reasons. Not round out, but it just contributes another reason for why this show worked so well. So, yeah. Marks for 7. I thought he was doing dinner theater when Quantum Leap came up. I actually believe he had just been nominated for a Tony Award, Scott Bakula, and it was one of the hottest Broadway shows of that year. I would tell you which one, but I don't really sit around and watch Broadway shows, and certainly didn't during that year. I respect what people do on Broadway. I understand that if you're there, you have to be a good actor, but since I'm a regular male man, I don't sit around and watch musicals all day on Broadway or whatever it is. It does show that he's very talented if he was nominated, such a star in that setting, though. I respect that. Anyhow, number 6, the voice of the narrator. So Deborah Pratt, the series narrator and voice of Ziggy, also wrote and was the executive producer of the series. She was married to Donald P. Belisario when the series aired. That is true, and I think that towards the end of the series, they actually, were in the middle of a divorce. I don't know. I've never known if how that would influence the series or what exactly happened there. I feel like that's a topic that I don't usually hear a lot about. It's very unfortunate in the sense that they were like a husband and wife duo working on this show, and they were doing such a great job on it. And it's kind of unfortunate. It reminds me of the case of Elizabeth Montgomery and her husband that they used to produce the show Bewitched, I believe. And then they also were in the middle of a divorce while they were filming that show. I believe that one also probably didn't help. It did run for a lot of seasons. Maybe it ran its course anyways. Bewitched, especially since the original Darren actor had back problems, and then they replaced him with another Darren who just didn't have the same. I don't know. He was a bit of a pushover, kind of. He didn't have the same. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think you guys understand. He had less of a presence than the first Darren, and just wasn't the same. Eventually, that show went down the toilet. But that is a whole different story. Now, voice of the narrator. Yeah, I mean, she is the narrator, and this is, here, Tex, you'll be happy, kind of a spoiler. It turns out that the narrator is also Ziggy. So it's the voice of the narrator, but it's also the voice of Ziggy. Not a really big spoiler, but a minor one. And number 7, leap years. Sam Beckett leaped into every year from 1953 to 1987 at least once, except for 1977. 1984 and 1986. Sam also leaped into 1862 and 1945, the only times that he leaped outside of his lifetime. Again, that is a bit of a spoiler. I'm trying to think for a second. The 1862 one, that one I remember it. They have a clever explanation as to why it exists. Honestly, that is an episode that I've seen maybe once in my life or twice in my life, the one that he goes to 1862. I don't know why I haven't seen that one a lot. I should probably, I must have watched it, let's say, twice, but I haven't watched that one in years. I don't want to judge it. I remember having mixed feelings about it, but I would have to look into it again and see what I liked and didn't like about it. There was something a bit strange, but I don't want to speak without rewatching. The 1945 one, I'm kind of struggling to remember which one that was. Which one was 1945? I don't know. It's sort of, I'm blanking here. I don't know why. Anyhow, we'll get to it at some point because we haven't gotten to it until now. But 1945 should be interesting. Oh, I think I know what the 1945 one is now. Never mind. Anyhow, let's move on to the next one. Yes, Tex, I know what you mean, and I agree, but I don't want to spoil, but you're right. That's exactly the one. I remember now what the 1945 one. It does happen in season 4. Let's just say that. Number 8, unused ideas for episodes. There were several ideas for episodes that were never used. One had Sam leaping in as Robert F. Kennedy. Another idea would have involved an animated episode, and the producers even toyed with the idea of leaping Sam in as a baby. This was to be the story of the 14th issue of the Quantum Leap comic, but production ended after number 13. I think we kind of dodged a bullet with that one. Also, writer and producer Donald P. Belisario wanted to do an episode where Sam leaps in as Thomas Magnum from Magnum P.I., 1980. It is unclear why that episode never materialized, although in an earlier episode, a character is seen watching Magnum P.I., thus establishing that series as fiction within the Quantum Leap universe. Let me put it this way: that would have been very cool if he, for some reason, would have leapt into Magnum PI. I mean, it's bonkers, ridiculous, makes no sense. But you know what? You've piqued my curiosity, and if you had an episode like that, I probably would have enjoyed it. Yes, the dead man. You're right. You're right. Absolutely. When you said struck by lightning, you're right about everything you're saying, and I remember which episode it is. It kind of escaped me because I didn't remember why he would be. And then I'm like, oh, it's that one. And yes, it is. I know exactly which episode it is. Number 9, aborted feature film. Almost immediately after the series was canceled, producers announced plans to continue with a television series or perhaps theatrical movies. Scott Bakula expressed optimism in the projects and stated that he and Dean Stockwell wanted to continue in their roles. Nothing came of the plans, the closest being an announced movie for the Sci-Fi Channel in the early 2000s, which was never produced until the sequel series, Quantum Leap 2022, was developed and debuted on September 19th, 2022. Bakula announced on his Instagram that he has nothing to do with the new series. Stockwell died in 2021. Well, that really is one of the things that annoys me the most. I mean, it's a show that, if nothing else, deserved a 2-hour movie just to tie things up. I think it would have been nice and it would have been fair. Some of these networks, sometimes it's double stupidity. First of all, don't be jerks, because there were people that you got money from for all these years that enjoyed the show. It had a really kind of strong core of fans that followed it. It was really a kind of like a cult show with a cult following. And when you have something like that, if you're not an idiot, you spend money on so much crap on some of these networks. Just give a 2-hour movie that you can finish this thing properly, give some closure to people, and give like a proper finale, which I think that we never really got. It's better than no finale what we got, but it's not really the finale that I think the series deserved. And when you have actors and the caliber of Bakula and Stockwell that are so interested in doing the movie, I don't think the money here was the issue. And sadly, I'm going to say something else, that I feel that in later years, they kind of all dragged their feet at some point, because this is just my humble opinion, that they thought that the Al character was quote unquote problematic. And interestingly, the second that actor died, like Dean Stockwell died, they're like, we're rebooting. It's like, really, now you're rebooting? He's been here for years waiting for this movie to be made. Now you're rebooting it, and there was something just so annoying about it. And then they wanted to kind of bring in Sam, but to make a joke out of him, or I don't know what. I'm so happy that Scott Bakula wanted nothing to do with them. Scott Bakula in our modern age, day and age, is the only actor that they said, hey, do you want to be in the sequel series? It's so great. You're going to be a complete idiot. Well, we're going to take a dump on this show. And he said, no, I don't want anything to do with this. I'll see you later. It's like the only one. Almost every other case, the people got on board. So it is what it is. And then next, that is the aborted feature film. Next, we have the Battlestar Galactica connection. The series traces its roots to Battlestar Galactica 1978, which Donald P. Belisario co-wrote and co-produced. That series revival spin-off Galactica 1980 originally was to center around time travel and returning changes in history back to normal. The concept was dropped after the pilot, but Belisario stuck with the concept to develop into this show. Now, that is true, but the other thing is that, and this I've seen a number of interviews, part of what really interested Belisario is that he really had this dream of doing an anthology show. He had an idea for a show that each week it's like a different place, a different location, a different time. I don't know if maybe he thought around the same time as Galactica, he thought of this, but he had this dream that he wanted to do his anthology show. And he couldn't get it off the ground because apparently networks didn't like that. They thought that they couldn't sell that kind of thing. It's not popular and it's not something that they were looking for. And because he kept getting stuck with it, he then, maybe having this idea left over, sort of merged all of his ideas and said, wait a minute, what if it was a guy that traveled through time at each point he's leaping into a different person in a different area? That way I get my anthology, but it's also tied to science fiction and it has time travel. And really, it seems like such a simple idea, but it's so brilliant. And the amount of thought he care he put into his idea, I think, is wonderful. So really, really like it. Doctor Who with the Tardis is much the same anytime or any place or any planet. Yes, that is true. But I think that Doctor Who is more kind of bonkers wacky. It's like, because it's so kind of loose with its rules, it's just kind of, it's completely bizarre and out there in a great way. I mean, I really like Doctor Who, but I think that Quantum Leap has this kind of logic that really is very focused. It's a lot easier to kind of stick with its lore and with its ideas until you reach this crappy reboot. But I'm saying that the original show definitely, it's very focused with its rules and how it works. Sometimes maybe they make some changes to lore and they bend things a little, but I do think that overall they really created a great universe with that Quantum Leap show. Number 11, top cult series. Ranked number 15 in TV Guide's list of 25 top cult shows ever made. The May 30th, 2004 issues. I agree. I think that it's a major cult series. I think that it's one of those shows that I believe that over time was just appreciated more and more and more. I know, people move on, and maybe, I don't know if youngsters sit around and watch it like young kids. I don't even know if they watch TV at all. They watch crap on TikTok, and because they like to have their brain cells die, so they like to watch the TikTok, like people dancing on TikTok and doing these kind of stupid gags and talking a bunch of nonsense with each other. Anytime I look at that kind of TikTok thing, which I don't do often, I feel like brain cells die when you look at it. It kind of casts a spell on you. Sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes like even on some of those other platforms, you have those kind of shorts and they start popping up and I start like scrolling and I have to catch myself after a few minutes and I say to myself, stop looking at this. This is just like a waste of your time. It's really like somebody's casting a spell. Like somebody's like cooking an omelet and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, he's really cooking that omelet. I'm like, what are you doing? Who cares? You can cook 7 omelets. Anyhow, next. Tex Rogers, does that mean the writer doesn't like it, but others do? Have no idea what you're talking about. Number 12, Time Tunnel Connection. This show has some similarities with the TV series The Time Tunnel. Both were government-funded projects threatened with having their funds cut off. Both shows had the main characters go inside their projects to prove that they could work and ultimately get lost inside them, jumping from era to era. Let me tell you about the Time Tunnel. I actually, as a kid, didn't run into as many reruns of that show as I would have liked. Anytime I ran into one, I was kind of fascinated by the show. It had these 2 guys, Doug and Tony. They used to just like, I think they wore these knitted sweaters or something, and they jumped from time to time. It was a ridiculous, silly show, but there was some kind of charm about it. And I remember as a kid, whatever few shows that they showed of it that I would catch, I found it fascinating because I've always really liked time travel. So even though I know it wasn't maybe the most high quality time travel show, it was a time travel show, and I kind of liked it for no apparent reason. Tex Rogers, yep, I enjoy Time Tunnel. Never heard of it, but a co-worker told me about it. Never heard of it, I guess, until you've watched it, I assume. But yes. And then you said, what makes a show a cult show? I think that what makes it is that especially that it's been gone for years and there's still people that are kind of talking about it and there's a certain fondness to it. And when you find people that really like it, they're really knowledgeable about things that happen on it. There are people also people that like this show, they've probably watched every episode of the show of Quantum Leap. Not every show is like that. Sometimes there's a show people like it. Yeah, I've seen a few episodes here, a few episodes there. This is a show that I think that people, if they like this show, they go out of their way to see the episodes. And once they do, they're on board. Even years later, you talk to them, they're like, oh, it's Quantum Leap. So yeah, I think it has sort of that kind of cult following. That's the best way I could explain it. Next, we have number 13, Film Connection. The concept of Sam inhabiting the identity of another person to incorporate a change for the better was inspired partly by Heaven Can Wait, 1978, which in itself was a remake of Here Comes Mr. Jordan, 1941, with the one exception of changing the lead character from a prize fighter, Mr. Jordan, to a Los Angeles Rams quarterback in Heaven. Series creator Donald P. Belisario saw the concept as a way of developing an original anthology series, as anthologies were unpopular with the networks. That's again something that I had mentioned. Maybe this was one of his influences. I don't know. I will say that I don't think it's exactly like Heaven Can Wait or that other one. I guess if you're saying that in that movie he's supposed to die, and instead of dying, he sort of goes into like another body or something. I haven't watched that movie in a really long time, and they're not even mentioning it. They did another one with Chris Rock. Okay, now I remember. Basically, you're one person, you're supposed to die, and then they put you in another person. So I guess there's a sort of quantum leap element to it, but it's rather loose. It's a rather loose one. So never saw Heaven Can Wait. It's okay, Text. If you don't see it, you'll be okay, I think. But Price of Reason Live, Casablanca isn't a cult movie, but others are. Not sure about TV. I think that Casablanca is considered kind of a classic cinema. So I don't know if to say it's a cult movie. Cult is more like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. There's some people that see it, know what it is, get it, and completely can quote it for you and have seen it a number of times. Some people will look at it and be like, what is it that I'm looking at? And sometimes that happens with cult movies. Uh, the Big Lebowski, I mean, initially back in the day was a little more of a cult movie. When I went to the movie theater to see The Big Lebowski when it came out, I was sitting by myself and watched it, and then I watched it again, and I think again I was sitting by myself. Same thing happened to me with Team America World Police. Today, when you say those movies, everybody sort of rewrites history and pretends like they've always liked it, but I know that nobody was there when I saw it. I know that wasn't the case when these movies came out. So these kind of develop a cult following. Sometimes, though, it develops so much cult that it becomes sort of a mainstream cult, but it is what it is. Hopefully, I've explained it. Is the original, what is the border between cult and classic? Is the original Star Wars classic? And that's classic. I think that cult is one that maybe initially people didn't even know, and it was more of like a well-kept secret, a little gem, and maybe over time it just grew and grew. I think that's a better definition of cult. And I think that more people discovered Quantum Leap over the years through reruns and syndication, and somehow it's built that kind of cult following. I think it is. The Dead Man says the Rocky Horror Picture Show is a cult movie. That's kind of true too. Also, The Room, if you think about it, The Room was a movie that was ridiculous, but somehow it gained some strange following that people were just watching it, and it grew and grew. Initially, when it came out, it made like $5. Today, it's actually profitable. Number 14, casting Al. Malcolm McDowell auditioned for the role of Al Calavici, which would have made him a time travel for the second time. The first time was Time After Time. That's very interesting, and it really says something about the type of caliber actors that wanted to be involved in this program. Malcolm McDowell is a kind of veteran actor, and in 1989, I mean, he was significantly younger than in this picture. I mean, he was in the Clockwork Orange in the 70s, which is a Stanley Kubrick movie, and considered a very legitimate actor. So I think that Malcolm McDowell, it shows this show's strength and this production strength that he even came to audition for Al, and actually they went with Dean Stockwell, also a veteran actor. I love that there were veteran actors competing with auditions over who gets to be in this show. And by the way, Malcolm McDowell is a superb actor. So yeah, interesting. He says, Tex Rogers, I know him from Star Trek Generations. Yep. Caleb Levine, I'd say culture classic is something that didn't succeed in theaters but got a big fan base that loved it and kept it alive. True. And I think with shows, it may be something that over time there's just more fans and more people that learn about the show. And I think Quantum Leap has that quality. And finally, we have the number 15, the sequel series. In 2022, an embarrassing Quantum sequel. Sorry. I think, Quantum sequel series. Hold on one second. Sorry, I was just looking at something. Okay, in 2022, an embarrassing Quantum sequel series was launched, and it was so stinky that it was canceled after only 2 seasons. Yes, that is true. That's what happened. It was very, very embarrassing. A lot of people even know me today because I did videos about how embarrassing that show was. That show basically, it capped off what was already a very insulting thing that they did to fans of the original. I think that fans deserved that movie to tie up the plot. They deserved it for years. There were so many great things that could have been done. It's very, very, very cynical and mean-spirited that the second that Dean Stockwell died, like 5 minutes later, they announced this show. And then, I like I said, the silver lining is that Scott Bakula wanted nothing to do with it. This show is just, it's one of the most embarrassing sequel series ever made. And like I said, I think that Quantum Leap, because it's a more cult show, because it has more of a niche audience, I think that not enough noise was made about it. It is a disaster on the same level of the Star Wars ruining that franchise and Star Trek and a lot of other franchises. And I don't know. It may not even make any difference anymore. I don't know if 10 years from now or one day maybe somebody will think, oh, maybe we can do something else now with it and ignore that stupid thing that we did there. Maybe by that time, people will be less obsessed with strange identity politics and certain things that were heavily shoved into this show, which didn't even need it. The original show did all the things that that are very kind of diverse and inclusive, but they did it in an organic and sophisticated way, in a thought-provoking way that really that was very entertaining to watch. Whereas this new series was everything that's wrong with Hollywood. And yes, it was an absolute disaster. And even the fact that it went on for 2 seasons, people should be embarrassed about that at NBC. It didn't even have an audience. I don't know why they kept it. And it was a complete disservice to fans. So yeah, and then Tex Rogers says, "Price of Reason Live. The only good thing about the sequel is that I found you because of it." That is true, and I found a lot of you guys here, including you, Tex, and Marks for 7 says the show checked so many boxes. How they managed to get 2 seasons from a show nobody ever even saw before renewal was announced. There were a lot of things, and Script isn't here right now, but a friend of the channel, Script Doctor, who's on the panel usually on Thursdays when we do the Quantum Leap show. He actually told me, based on some insider information that he heard, is that the first season of the show was actually not considered a success for NBC, but they had a problem with filling it with something else. Basically, almost as some strange default, they gave it another season, even though it's not that they were super excited about it as much as they didn't have a lot of options, and they thought maybe whoever's running it can improve it. And after the first season, I actually said, this is the final chance. This showrunner, who is a clown in my opinion, can course correct and do something that's not garbage. And he did the exact opposite. He went like full Kurtzman Abrams, which like the Kurtzman Abrams are his like mentors or whatever it is, or it's a long story, but he went in that direction. Just embarrassing, mystery boxes, poor writing, poor planning, poor directing, poor acting. It was a complete disaster. I remember I watched the first few episodes, and I actually started this channel that you're watching now, this second channel for live streams. The reason I started it was because I couldn't even do these videos anymore. I started doing a few videos where I criticized the show, but less and less people were even watching the videos criticizing the show, the new one. And you know that your show is in trouble when people don't even want to sit around and laugh at it anymore. Meaning, people didn't even say, "Okay, where's the video? We'll sit all together and laugh at it." It's like, like people are just shrugging and moving on. You know that the show is dead. And I think that I felt it, and that's why I just said, well, you know what, guys, I'll continue to do reviews on this second channel, and we can all hang out and make fun of it. But I felt like now it was more of more select audience that was going to be doing this, because the more normie crowd that maybe thought of looking at this thing were already over it. And longtime fans, many of them were over it and just didn't want to hear about it anymore. But again, great. Sometimes good things come out of bad things. And I think that the fact that we do this great show, that we celebrate the original show every week, and even like we're doing now, these kind of streams, and even having this channel and everything that it does, these are all positive things. And I'm very, very grateful and very happy. And Thanksgiving is a great day to be grateful. And I am thankful, and I'm thankful for all of you also that are all here hanging out with me today, and that you guys hang out with me here every week. So on that very positive note, let me see if there are some interesting comments. Who was the showrunner, Price of Reason? That was Martin Giro. Well, the show started off, I think it's like Steve Lillian and some other, I don't want to say a bad word, some other guy. There were two people that were in charge. The two people that initially were the showrunners, they were actually disciples, from what I remember, of Alex Kurtzman. And Alex Kurtzman is a disciple of J.J. Abrams. So basically, they're like a third-generation carbon copy of J.J. Abrams. Meaning J.J. Abrams is the quote-unquote the talented one. Then you have Kurtzman, which is like less talented than Abrams. And then you have them that's less talented than Kurtzman. The fact that, Abrams is their like top one that they're trying to emulate is a really bad sign, because he himself, in my opinion, as I've called him before, and this is just my opinion, the Hamburglar of Hollywood. So if they like him, that's not a good sign. And then they started with this, they planned it, they cast it, they filmed, I think, 6 episodes or something like that. And then the network came to the conclusion that they're not doing the kind of job that they want. Now, I'd like to say that the network didn't like them because they were doing a crappy job, which they probably were. But the truth is that I think the network wanted a showrunner that just does things even cheaper and puts in more propaganda. And this Martin Giro guy was just the perfect guy for them. He came in, he swooped in, he said, you want gender neutral people throughout time and all these things, and I'll do it all. And he delivered exactly, I guess, what they asked for. It's just there wasn't an audience for it because they were crap. Then I can't believe Giro came from Stargate franchise. At least some quality talent didn't rub off on him. He wasn't the big honcho there. He had some stuff that he did there, but sometimes you have a guy that's surrounded by a lot of other talented people, and maybe those people can rein him in if they're sort of the ones in charge. I think that from the second that they let him do shows of his own, one of the reasons I think NBC took Giro is he had some other show, some cop drama, or I don't know what it was, that he did really on the cheap, and he managed to make the show go on for like 4 or 5 seasons. I tried watching that show out of curiosity. A complete stinker of a show. I don't know how that show got multiple seasons, but he's just a guy, he does the same thing, the same stupid mysteries. It's like, you're not really bringing a showrunner that's here to do any kind of creative work. He's just like, his whole goal is, how do I fool people into watching another episode? Stick in as many little teasers, a little crap here and a little crap there. Doesn't matter if it's good. It's just, he needs to somehow play with your mind enough so you can watch the next crappy episode. That is a very J.J. Abrams technique, kind of like in Lost. What's the show Lost? It's nothing. It's a piece of crap. I'm sorry, I know some people spent time on it. I appreciated it. Initially, it seemed like it would be good, but I knew it was crap, and that's just me. Anyhow, speaking of every week, I'm so sad I will miss most, if not all, of next week due to a commitment. It's okay. That is fine. That happens. Charles Gosser is the anthology format, like the original Twilight Zone. Yeah, that worked then, but they couldn't make it work for here. By the way, it's Jar Jar Abrams. That is absolutely true. Even though for me, he is the Hamburglar of Hollywood. Denman Price has well noticed most of the big issues with the series. I found a few of the stories decent, and I rewatched them. There are some which that I've never seen. Murakstra. Hello, everyone. Hi, Murakstra. I think that one of the great things, now I'm going to toot my own horn here, is that from the first episode that I reviewed the new show, I laid out all the problems. I went episode by episode explaining what the problems are in the show. Every single thing that I pointed out was an issue that was ruining the show just got worse. And like, you know how you're watching a sports game and sometimes you have an announcer that you could tell he knows what he's talking about and he's really analyzing the game in the best possible way, and then the game is over? I feel like that's the analysis I gave for the new Quantum Leap show. I I had some people come to these videos say, how dare you say this and how dare you say that, but every single thing that I analyzed, every criticism I gave, I think was on point. That's at least my opinion, of course, and maybe I'm not objective. Caleb Levine, I love the description. The Hamburger Burglar of Hollywood is absolutely what I believe he is. Tex Rogers, yep, that was very well done. Your review of the continued series. Well, thank you. I do feel I did the best I could with it. And again, if nothing else, I'm so grateful for the amount of people I got to know. Sometimes, there's people that feel a certain way and they're looking for a place where people are talking about it. And I feel like in the Quantum Leap sphere, there were mainly just sort of shill channels because, again, it's a smaller, more niche property. There were a lot of these type of channels that they had cast and crew sitting there every 5 minutes giving them interviews, and they would keep complimenting them and saying how great it is. Martin Giro, again, and this isn't me speculating, this actually I saw it, he would go to some of these channels, some of them with almost no followers. I'm not saying I'm not the biggest channel or anything like that, but I'm saying channels that didn't have a large following and weren't even, weren't in these kind of circles of fans or anything, and he'd give them like the exclusive of everything. He lets them watch in advance, watch the episodes, lets them have interviews, just so that you will go to YouTube and some of these videos pop up. Usually, unfortunately for him, a lot of times my videos would pop up. At one point, even there was a bit of an issue that I don't want to get into it, but there's even, I think, one video that I may have removed or something. Unfortunately, one of my reviews is no longer up because of some issue, but none of that matters now. Somebody says Goofy Lab Guy was fine until he started using pronouns. Are you referring to random office guy person? I believe that was his name. In any case, Marks for 7, the QL Reddit group went fully woke on board with a new version. Surprise, I can only imagine how many of them blocked me. Yeah, I mean, it's funny how some people are willing to just embrace any dumb crap. At the end of the day, like with all these other shows, you get these kind of radical activists to support you, but at the end, that's not enough to sustain a show. This show is on network TV. It's not even one of those niche streaming things. It's on network TV. The only thing they should have done is think, how do we appeal to our classic Quantum Leap fan base? And I think had they done that, they would have had something to work with. Instead, they're like, how do we try to get a brand new audience of activists? And yeah, I mean, a lot of franchises try this and networks, and they end up failing because it turns out that you can't just reinvent and bring some new audience of activists. Usually the activists, they're not really watching shows. They don't care about this stuff. They're not like obsessed with science fiction with these kind of shows. They're not good. They're not good consumers in many cases because they don't really care about the show itself. They only care about the messaging and if there's some propaganda that it peddles that they like. But when all you care about is messaging and propaganda, and you don't really have that kind of love for the franchise itself, those are not the type of fans that you're really looking for. It's like in a casino, you have certain people that are considered VIP rollers and they're bringing the most money and they're gambling a lot and they're doing all this stuff. And that's like your top customers. And the casino knows it, really kind of takes care of them, offers them a bunch of stuff, pampers them, because they know these are the guys they want there with all the money that keep gambling in their casino and they keep making money off them. That's the people they want. Now, I think that sometimes with these kind of franchises like Quantum Leap or Star Trek or whatever it is, or Star Wars, these studios should be looking at people like us as the VIP ones. We're the kind that you put out some silly shirt, maybe one of us will buy it. You know what I mean? You say there's something here, a convention there, there's some collection, there's a DVD collection, there's 4K, remastered, anything. These are the people that may go out and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to buy this thing. All these kind of activists that want to go out and talk about their pronouns, they don't care about your convention. They don't care about they're not the high rollers. They're the ones that, you know what they are? Not only are they not the high rollers, they're the ones that arrived at the casino and they're there at that machine that you put a penny in, you know what I mean? Like it's 1 cent and you do 777, but not even the 777 that you put a dollar in. It's like the one that you put 1 penny in. That's what they are at best. So yeah, make of that what you will. Matthew Marcillo, hello again, Price. Great to see you and all of that. Cool, the sister and brothers hanging out here. Thanksgiving, Quantum Leap's live stream. Vroosh, yep, nice to see you too, Matthew Marcillo. So glad I came in for the new version of An Abomination. Ernie Hudson was the only good actor. You couldn't save it. Yeah, he was a good actor. Live the One-Armed Bandits. I'm not sure what you mean. In any case, I thought that this was a nice conversation we had. Charles Gossard, another classic time travel show, is a short-lived one season series, Voyagers. I'm not sure I saw that. I did see Sliders. Sliders is another show that I've watched episodes of Sliders. I thought it was interesting. Somehow, maybe it was at a time in my life that I couldn't have access to all the episodes, and then I just never did. I know that it had an initial cast, but then some of the cast members started leaving, and they sent their brothers or something. I don't even know. It was some weird crap. But initially, I think that the original early episodes of that show seemed pretty cool, but I suspect that it kind of went off a cliff, but I don't remember now. It's really a show that I always think to myself, maybe I should revisit it, but I just never get a chance. But it is what it is. And Ron Donofero, how's it going? Good to see you here. Tex Rogers has only seen bits and pieces of Sliders. I understand. Travelers on Netflix, The Dead Man, is a good show. That is a good show. I watched that. That's another one of the that could be one day like a cult show. I thought that was a really interesting show. I watched it. I really felt that it needed one more season to kind of, at least one more, to tie some things up there. They wouldn't give them the additional season. It's a shame, because I thought that show had a lot to offer. That was a show that was underrated, and I think people kind of overlooked it, and I'm not really sure why. It's unfortunate, because I thought it was a quality show. I liked it, I enjoyed it, and it was pretty cool. So, Marks for 7, yeah, the first 2 seasons of Sliders were by the creator. The network kicked him off and started doing high concept, movie of the week, copy crap, and then Alien Invasion. Yeah, I knew there was something weird about it. And then I think some cast members left, but now I struggle to remember who left and where and why. I love Sliders, but yeah, I tapered off, lived too long. Matthew Marceau says the first 3 seasons of Sliders were good. Then there was a situation where Jerry O'Connell and John Rhys-Davies. I think that was the end. You can't have that group and then you have both of them. Once you had both of them off the show, that's not a show anymore. I think that's where they really went into the garbage. But I don't remember why I keep thinking there's a brother of somebody. Like somebody left and his brother arrived. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't even know. I would Google it, but that would require a little more effort than I'm interested in doing. Life Out on Mars, buddy, after the David Bowie song. In any case, when the brothers left, it was over. In any case, this has been a really, really great little session we did here. I'm so happy we had a chance to hang out. It was a more kind of intimate and random stream that we just talk about Quantum Leap trivia. And hopefully we all enjoyed this conversation. I know I did. And I'm appreciative to all of you guys that you hung out with me here. And I'm always appreciative of that. And I hope that you're all having a great Thanksgiving. And hopefully this was just a nice little break from whatever Thanksgiving things you're doing. Muroxer says, funny, Jonathan Frakes was in 1 episode of Voyagers. Ed Begley Jr. was on 2 episodes. The dead man said it was Jerry O'Connell's brother that came in. I knew it. I knew there was some weird brother thing. And I didn't even Google it. I don't know why there was some kind of brother bait and switch maneuver. And I'm like, what did they brought the brother? I don't even get it. It's almost like Jerry O'Connell said, I don't want to be on this show anymore. If you want somebody that looks like me, here's my brother. And I'm like, fine, we'll take it. And it's like the most ridiculous thing. I could be wrong, but that's what I think happened. And a similar thing happened with, I think, with 21 Jump Street, where Peter DeLuise left, and he's like, hey, you want my brother? Here's a brother. He kind of looks like me. I'll see you later. I guess that was the thing back in the day. And Rob Nutskubla says, happy Thanksgiving, and I appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. And I guess this is a good time for us to sort of sign off. I appreciate everybody that hung out here with us. I think I've acknowledged the people that were here. If I missed anybody, I apologize. But again, Tex, Marks for 7, Peter, Caleb Levine, Marks for 7, I think I already said, Charles Gossard, the Dead Man, friend of the channel, Caleb Levine, I think I said, Charles Gossard. Well, some of the people here, repeated their things. But it's always great to hang out. Ron Donofero, Matthew Marcillo. If I missed Rob Nutskubla, if I missed anybody, I apologize. But it was great to hang out. And next week is going to be an interesting Quantum Leap Revisited episode with the regular panel of gentlemen. And it's going to be an interesting episode for us all to go over together. So until then, I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving and a wonderful evening. And even though people aren't here, I guess I'll still sign off with our theme song, our outro, or whatever it is. Let me see. Okay, bye.